This is another viewer request video. In this video we'll be looking at the best Sankaku-jime judoka in women's judo. We'll be going through all the weight categories from 48 kilo up to the under 78 kilo class. Now, I do not know any Sankaku-jime in super heavyweight women's judo. If you do know somebody that's won by Sankaku-jime in women's super heavyweight judo, do leave a comment because I'd certainly be interested in having a look at that. In the under 48s, the master of the Sankaku-jime was Munkhbaht. So she could use this both as a choke, but she could also use this to go into a variety of arm locks. And we're going to be having a look at that next. So here we see a beautiful little Yoko Wakare. And looks initially like she's trying to get the osai-komi, but as the opponent is able to escape, as always with Munkhbaht, very fast transitioning, and she wraps her up in her sankaku. But here she switches to, I guess you'd call it an ude-garami, and gets the tap there. Now here we're going to see her fail with the sankaku, but she's going to come and get the ashi-gatame as her opponent escapes. Munkhbaht retired after last year's Olympic Games, and she's headed for MMA. We'll see how she does at the age of 32. It seems like time is perhaps against her. But these techniques will work in MMA. There's very little reliance on the judo gi. Now the final one, we're going to see her go from Sankaku-jime to ude-gatame. So one of the unique things about Munkhbaht is she's able to get into her favorite positions from a variety of entrances. She wasn't just relying on one type of entrance to get into her attacks. She had such a big variety of finishes. Big distinction between Munkhbaht and the Japanese judokas is Munkhbaht generally didn't seem so interested in osai-komi. And we'll finish off this section with one last strangle Sankaku-jime finished by Munkhbaht. A few people will probably be thinking, what about Daria Bilodid in the under 48s? She did win a lot of matches by Sankaku, but I don't think she ever won using the technique as a choke. It was always a pinning technique for her. This variation of Daria's Sankaku-gatame doesn't impress me so much. I always feel like if this was BJJ, the person on the bottom could do a toe hold or some kind of leg lock on Daria. I don't think Daria will be headed to MMA if her transition to the 57 kilo division doesn't work out. Now in the 52 kilo class, Ryheul of Belgium is probably the best at the traditional Sankaku-jime. In general, I would say she's not particularly strong at any other aspect of judo other than Sankaku-jime, so almost all of her victories come via Sankaku-jime or Sankaku-gatame, a pinning form. And often she gets the win late in the match as her opponents are sort of exhausted and no longer able to defend. But in this one from last year's World Championships, she was able to get the win fairly early on in this match. Next, we'll have a look at a rarely seen variation of Sankaku-jime applied using a collar choke. And the master of this is Chishima Maeda. I've included more footage of her doing this in my Kanto choke video. And in the 57 kilo class, Momo Tamaoki is also pretty good at this. Now, I can't think of any players in the 57 kilo class that are good at traditional Sankaku-jime. There's people like Stoll and Jakova that use it as a pinning form. I can't think of any that use it as a choke. So if you do know any 57 kilo class players that are winning with Sankaku-jime as a strangle, please leave a comment. Now we're up to the 63 kilo class, and we've got Lucy Renshall of Great Britain and her ushiro-sankaku variation. And this is part of a system that Renshall uses that involves arm locks. You might have noticed earlier on in this clip that the girl in blue was tapping, but the ref didn't notice. And so this one ended up just being an osai-komi victory. If you have a look at my video on the top 10 strangles using the legs, I've included one of Renshall's ushiro-sankaku submission wins. Next, we're going to have a look at another variation of Sankaku-jime. This is Kelly Petersen Pollard of the Great Britain Judo team. So in this variation, you're reaching for your opponent's far lapel under their arm, and the rest of the movement is basically the same as a standard koshi-jime. Here she's under her opponent's arm, hooking the leg. She's bringing her hips towards the back of her opponent's head. In this clip, the opponent does appear to go unconscious, and then she recovers quickly and perhaps rushes to her feet a little early. She's stumbling around a bit. Next, we're up to the 70 kilo class, and Kelita Zupancic was the master of the Sankaku-jime in this class. And not only was she able to do Sankaku-jime, she was also able to transition to other locks from the Sankaku-jime. So this one, I'm not sure whether it was an arm submission. We can see the opponent directly going for their arm immediately after the submission. But this one is definitely a joint submission rather than a strangle from the Sankaku-jime attempt. So Zupancic is now retired. So in a moment, we'll have a look at the girl that might be the top Sankaku-jime player in the future for this 70 kilo category. But here's a final look at Zupancic's gyaku-sankaku-jime, reverse Sankaku-jime, reverse triangle choke. Here's Mayu Honda of Japan. This is a match from a couple of months ago where she got the submission with Sankaku-jime. So if you know any other women in the 70 kilo class that are using Sankaku-jime currently, please leave a comment. In the 78 kilo class, about 10 years ago, the number one weaponizer of this technique was Akari Ogata of Japan. She was a classmate of Mami Umeki, who is the number one Sankaku-jime user in the under 78 kilo class. And here's a look at Mami Umeki, Akari Ogata's former classmate. She probably learnt the technique from her. and applying similar strangle. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more non-stop Nawaza. Next video will be about super heavyweights women's judo.